It's 3:15, and that means it's time for...
The Real Deal with Bill McNeil.
That's right. Welcome once again to The Real Deal with Bill McNeil. I'm your host, Bill McNeil, and you're probably wondering exactly what is the real deal today.
Hey, good question.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. We've got more comic industry news. DC Comics keeps releasing their new creative teams that are starting out in March, and the news keeps getting better and better. I don't consider the new Nightwing creative team to be more exciting than Philip Kennedy Johnson on Action Comics and Superman, although I imagine a lot of people do. The new Nightwing writer is certainly a much better-known commodity in the comic book industry than Philip Kennedy Johnson, who I think is a terrific creator. And a lot of people might think I'm going to be negative on this, but I'm not. Some people say I should change the channel from Thinking Critical to Thinking Cynical, and I completely understand that. But today I'm going to be very optimistic that Tom Taylor is the right man to be the new writer for Nightwing. Nightwing has gone through some very bad times lately, starting in Batman 55 when Tom King basically had KG Beast shoot Dick Grayson in the head. He had amnesia. He became Rick Grayson, basically decided he didn't want to be Nightwing again, but then he joined up with a team of Nightwings, and they tried to make him the Talon, and I don't know. Ben Percy was doing a really good job on Nightwing. I guess they didn't like his plan for Dick Grayson with amnesia, so they brought in Scott Lobdell to take over the character of Rick Grayson. That did not work out at all. It was not very well received. So they brought in Dan Jurgens, who has been known to come on and basically save a title here and there. And that didn't work out either. Rick Grayson was a complete wash. It never took, and it was just a bad idea from the beginning. Although recently, during Joker War, by the end, Dick Grayson was back. He remembered who he was, and he's trying to make amends, although I'm not going to get into the Batgirl 50 issue and the weird stuff that Cecil Castellucci did with his relationship with Barbara Gordon. Looks like that's going to be washed out. And surprise, Barbara Gordon Batgirl is going to be joining Dick Grayson Nightwing in Blüdhaven to investigate at least the first story. Like I imagine they're going to be stuck together for a little while, and I'll explain that here in a minute. Now, before I get into all the details of why I am very optimistic about the creative team on Nightwing moving forward, I do want to say, if you haven't subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this video. Give us a thumbs down if you don't. Either way, we want to hear your thoughts on the new Nightwing creative team. What are your thoughts on Tom Taylor writing Nightwing? Are you excited? I'm pretty excited. I think this might be just what Nightwing needed. Now, it will not just be Tom Taylor. The artist will be Bruno Redondo. If the name sounds familiar, he and Tom Taylor have worked together quite a bit in the past. They've worked on Injustice, the Superman Goes Crazy digital series that spun out of the video game, quite successful. But he's also most recently worked with Tom Taylor on the Suicide Squad relaunch. It only lasted 11 issues. By all accounts, it was really good. I never started reading it because once they announced that series, they also announced that Generation 5 would be coming up, and I knew it didn't mean anything, that they were just going to kind of reboot everything. And I guess I was right, because they stopped at issue 11, and they are relaunching that with the new Suicide Squad team that's more in line with what's going to be in the movie. So these two have worked together a lot in the past. That lovely picture in the background is a piece of interior art from Nightwing 78, which will be the first issue with Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo on it. Now, this is why I'm optimistic about Tom Taylor on Nightwing. By all accounts, he is a completely different creator at DC Comics than he is at Marvel Comics. At Marvel, I think he's almost 100% trash. Although people will argue with me and say he's had some good stuff, I will point directly to X-Men Red, which was awful, and Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is just one of the worst takes I've ever seen on the character. It was just really bad. But when he's over at DC Comics, obviously he's done the Injustice stuff, well received. People enjoy that world. But he's also got the Deceased universe, which I think is excellent. Now, the sequel series, Dead Earth, isn't quite as good as the original, but how many sequels are as good as the original? It's still very good. It's high quality. But he's also done some annual work on Batman. He had a terrific, I think it was Batman Annual #2 that he wrote, which was excellent. It was better than anything Tom King had put out on Batman in quite some time. He's basically just a different creator at DC Comics. Now, I believe one of the reasons that is due to editorial oversight and likely the direction that he's given. So we've got a wild card here. We've got a lot of changes at DC Comics lately, specifically in the editorial department. I believe they cut like a third of their editorial services staff. So they're stretched pretty thin right now on editorial. They also have new leadership and management. As far as they have a new IC, they have a brand new general manager. And it does feel like DC Comics is wading more into the social commentary, pushing, narratives, agendas that align with maybe their personal beliefs. Now, if that is the direction that DC Comics goes, I think this Nightwing will be borderline unreadable. Like bigotry and mustard unreadable. But I'm holding out faith that DC Comics are just in a transition period, and that is not the ultimate direction that they're going to. It's going to be a part of the brand of DC Comics going forward, but it's not going to be the whole brand. And hopefully, Tom Taylor will get good oversight, good editorial, and he will be able to write a dynamite Nightwing story. And I also mentioned they are including Barbara Gordon Batgirl in here, and it's important. They do refer to her as Batgirl in the solicitation. I find that a little bit surprising. Now, we do know that Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon recently married in the Dark Knight's Death Metal Final Tales of the Universe story, where Batman kind of spiritually wed them, and they decided if they live, they're gonna get annulled. But Dick Grayson promised that he would pursue a relationship with Barbara Gordon if they made it. So assuming that somehow in this universe that has happened, I'm assuming there's going to be some type of romance, and I imagine Barbara Gordon is going to be a permanent fixture in this Nightwing. But I am still surprised they're calling her Batgirl. I thought she was Oracle, especially after the events of Joker War. Plus, I am 100% expecting there to be a Batgirls comic book announced very shortly. I'm expecting the DC solicitations, final solicitations, to come out today or tomorrow. They might have done it by the time this video goes up. And I'm expecting Spoiler and Orphan to be the Batgirls. There's the Batgirls Future State comic. They've certainly hinted at the two within Detective Comics and other Batman books. I believe Batman 100 had an after story in it. I think we saw him there. So I might be wrong about that one. But I think there's going to be a Batgirls comic book. So there's no need for Barbara Gordon Batgirl. I'm shocked she's just not Oracle now. But they do refer to her as Batgirl in the solicitation. And this is going to take place in Blüdhaven. And the first story arc, so we know in Detective Comics, I think it's Nakano is running for mayor there. We know that ultimately leads to the magistrate kind of taking over and creating a police state in Gotham, and that's where Nightwing ends up in 2025. But here in Nightwing and Blüdhaven, they have a new mayor here as well, and his last name is going to be very familiar. It is going to be Mayor Zucco. Now, obviously, for Nightwing fans, that is going to be a very familiar name. Anthony Zucco was a crime lord who was shaking Dick's parents down for protection money, or maybe it was just a circus down for protection money. And he's the one that sabotaged their equipment and led to Dick Grayson's parents dying at the circus. And it says, I believe in the solicitations that, let's see if I can find that quote. Yeah. When Nightwing enlists Batgirl's help in investigating the politician bearing the same name as the man who murdered his parents, she unearths details that will shock and fundamentally change the hero. It sounds like they might be or are likely changing the origin of Nightwing And maybe it's not Tony Zucco ultimately who is responsible for that. Not completely happy about that, but we shall see. It can be done well. But we are going to be, going back to the origins of Nightwing and Tony Zucco in there. That should be interesting. We do have some interior art besides this one on the background that have been released. Obviously, these are from Bruno Redondo. They're in black and white, and you can see right here there is a dog, and that is not just any dog. That is a three-legged dog that Nightwing is protecting in the streets of Blüdhaven. I imagine he's going to become Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson's sidekick. Nightwing with a three-legged dog sidekick. Count me in. That sounds like a terrific addition to the family. What are they going to call him? I would call him Trey or Trywan or something cool like that, referring to him as a three-legged wheel. You know what I'm saying? So that should be cool. If you like puppies in your comic books, I think you'll like that addition. I'm remaining optimistic. The art looks perfectly fine. These two have worked together in the past, worked together successfully at DC Comics. A lot of people were very high on Suicide Squad, even though it didn't have the greatest sales. But I think a lot of people, like myself, saw the writing on the wall that that Suicide Squad series wasn't going to end up being long-term because they were about to do a reboot. But this could go very bad. If DC Comics is fundamentally changing up the core and the identity of the brand, and they're pushing more woke comics, more social commentary, more political agenda, more propaganda type stuff, Tom Taylor is the absolute worst writer you could have. He's not good at it. He's not nuanced. He's basically going to hit readers over the head with a ball-peen hammer, letting you know what he thinks about all the stuff going on in the world. And I think that will be very boring, will ruin the series, and it won't be worth reading. But I can guarantee you this will be reviewed on the channel, Nightwing 78, with the new creative team. I'm excited for a new day on Nightwing. As much as I like Dan Jurgens, and I actually expected him to make Rick Grayson work, it just didn't work. It's time for new blood. I think Tom Taylor, as long as it's the normal DC Comics Tom Taylor that we're getting, I think he will knock this out of the park, rejuvenate the title, and people will come back to Nightwing. Who's Dick Grayson's like my second favorite DC Comics hero, and he's definitely in my top 5 overall. He's a terrific hero, exceptionally relatable to readers. I think he's a dope hero. He's great, and it's going to be him and Barbara Gordon in Blüdhaven. I imagine they're going to be exploring their relationship. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you excited for the new Nightwing creative team? Is Tom Taylor the right guy for the job? Do you think that DC Comics are fundamentally changing at the core, and thus Tom Taylor might be the worst pick ever because there's no way that he can work in that atmosphere without ruining a character? Instead of going for a great story, he's just going for message above everything, like he did with X-Men Red, like he did with Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which were some very, very poor quality comic books. Those are, if you go and read those and then you go read Deceased, it's like two different writers. If you go read those and you go read that Batman Annual #2, I think he did #3 as well, which wasn't as good, but Batman Annual #2, and go read the first issue of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It's two different people. It doesn't feel like the same writer. So hopefully we are getting the creator that we've seen in the past at DC Comics that's very competent and very good as far as the characters in telling a good, exciting story. If DC Comics is changing and they give him free reign to throw message in over story, it'll be a train wreck, and I'll stop reading this in very short order. But I'm being very optimistic. I think it's going to be the first, and this is going to be another hit for DC Comics. I think it's a great choice. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.